If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. Today we are taking a look at a highly controversial topic, but in these times, some would consider them the most trying of times in recent history regarding world events, and in particular, the so-called thinning of the veil in terms of what is going on behind the scenes of worldly affairs regarding string pullers, the New World Order, the Illuminati scum, whatever you want to call them. The social engineers, you can call them whatever you want. The powers that be. Just not that many years ago, all of the coincidence theorists and the bootlicking authority-worshipping cultist goofs, they were still maintaining there's no such thing as the Bilderberg Group. Alex Jones is a complete psycho, wrong about everything. This wasn't that many years ago. Now, looking at the scoreboard between the crazy so-called conspiracy theorists, the corruption-aware critical thinkers, whatever you want to call them, versus the coincidence theorists, the authority-worshipping cultist bootleggers, it's a complete blowout. There's conspiracy theories. Some people believe there's only two types of conspiracy theories. Again, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. This is MINDSHOCK, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. But some people allege in the conspiracy theorist camp that there's only two types of conspiracies. Those that have been already proven true, and those that haven't yet been proven true. Now, I'm not going to jump into that false dichotomy logic fallacy myself, but I will say this. It is very curious how a lot of goofs, they don't learn their lesson. The coincidence theorists, the authority-worshipping cultists, they never learn their lesson because they maintain from the outset, not only is the conspiracy theory not true, not only is the conspiracy theory not proven, but somehow they hallucinate to know for sure that it isn't true. Because it's one thing to say, oh, well, there's not enough evidence of that conspiracy theory, which is a very valid position, so it might not be true. But it's a whole nother thing entirely to behave like these clueless goofs who hallucinate to know for sure, pretending they have the highest clearances required in order to have that information, and they pretend and hallucinate vehemently that the conspiracy theory is definitely not true. And then when they're proven wrong time and time again, one conspiracy theory after another, these clueless brain-dead goofs, they still don't learn their lesson. That maybe, just maybe, some of these conspiracy theorists might be true, even though they haven't been proven true at the moment. Now, obviously, there are some wacky conspiracy theories out there that are not true. Again, I'm not claiming to know what they are, but obviously, anybody can make up anything. There's theories that aren't true. But it is definitely curious on how the more time goes by, even the most seemingly insane conspiracy theories they just turn out to be true. Openly admitted in documentation, openly admitted by officials. And obviously all the coincidence theorists just pretend and hallucinate that away. So, yeah, we'll be going into what I would dub now the psyop age. Not that there haven't been countless psyops in the past, but it just seems to me, again, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. I am just spitballing here. This is all food for thought in typical MINDSHOCK fashion. It seems to me that we have entered a psyop age where not only are there more and more psyops being perpetrated every day, but the psyops of the past are being uncovered. And again, for all the triggered goofs, psyops do not mean that events aren't true. It simply means that the events are not necessarily what they appear to be, or they're manufactured in a certain way for a certain agenda. Again, none of this is revolutionary. Bill Cooper wrote about all this, and many others before him as well. So we will be examining this in typical MINDSHOCK fashion with logic and reason at the forefront. You want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. It helps support the channel that way. Get access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. If they're still not coming through, just make sure to like and comment on more videos. That's how the YouTube algorithm works in choosing who to notify based on the most engagement. Like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patreon's a good party for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You can also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. Okay, so the psyop age. Are we living in an age where almost everything is a psyop? I'm not going to go for a hasty generalization logic fallacy and just blatantly say absolutely everything is a psyop, although it might be, but I'm not making that claim. I'm not making any claim. So, yeah, if there's just a high percentage of psyops today versus time periods in the past. Now, again, I'm not stating that there weren't psyops in the past. There are probably psyops going back for as long as humans have wanted to control other humans. So basically, since the beginning of humanity, whenever that is. If you haven't checked out the Alter History series here on MINDSHOCK, check that out. We go into Tartaria, Mud Flood, all of the wackiness of the victors writing the history books and the true history being unknown. But what we do know is that humans want to control other humans. That's true today, and that's been true for all of the past as far as can be known. Whether you're talking governments, kings and queens, whatever, religious cults, there's always people wanting to exploit and control other people. So how is that done? That's done in a variety of ways. I mean, it's not just physical manual labor and enslavement and threat of death and imprisonment and all that stuff, although obviously that's a big component of statism and just generally controlling other humans. But psyops seem to be much more effective. So whenever you have more intelligent individuals trying to control other individuals, it just obviously employing psyops, psychological operations, would seem to be the logical thing to do if you're one of these power-hungry scum seeking to control others. Why wouldn't you utilize psyops? Of course you would. And now, in the age post the Church Committee and the declassification of MK Ultra, that seems to just be a huge component of psyops. Is obviously brainwashing is the general term, but that's done in so many different ways. Trauma-based mind control seems to be the most effective. You scare the masses, usually with a non-existent threat, or a threat that just is amplified well beyond whatever it really is, exponentially. I mean, you're more likely to be killed by a police officer, even while innocent, than a lot of these manufactured threats from the outside. We also have to keep in mind the William Colby quote, "When everything the American public believes is false, our job will be complete." It's an interesting quote. I've gone over the veracity of that quote on other podcasts. I won't do that here for all the goofs that think it's fake. Too bad. Go through the catalog. Check it out. You can just go to searching the MINDSHOCK channel and type that in. If it doesn't come up, just put it in the comment section. I guess I could put a link to it. I just don't feel like providing the evidence for every single little thing that I've already done a million times. I know a lot of people are going to jump on that. The coincidence theorists, all the triggered statist bootlicking goofs are going to jump on that and say, "Oh, that's not true. That's not true." How often have I not substantiated a quote? But the short story is, it was actually substantiated by the secretary as well as multiple sources. Okay, so anyway, there's clearly a war on the mind going on. Now, one of the theories that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion, is that the so-called powers that be are doing it for the benefit of the masses. Now, I'm not saying that's true in any way. I don't believe that's true. But I just think it's a theory that we would be remiss not to examine. Obviously, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, so even if the intention was good, that doesn't mean the outcome will be good. But, yeah, some people could believe that. Anyway, if there are psychological operations being perpetrated literally, let's say, every day, because most of what the mainstream puts out is false anyway, right? So, how often has it turned out to be true, just going back the past couple decades? On major events, everything from Gulf of Tonkin to Skiji, the poisoning of St. Louis, geoengineering, aka chemtrails, aka aerosol spraying, which some people deny, or they just get triggered over the label while denying that there's any kind of chemicals being sprayed in the air for any reasons. I mean, it's just the level of goofery exhibited by coincidence theorists trying to cope with governments not being benevolent. I mean, it's insane. It's just absolutely insane. So some of these bigger psychological operations, like some people think the entire Jonestown saga was a psychological operation. If you haven't checked out the Jonestown series on MINDSHOCK, check that out. Was it all a psychological operation from the get-go to try to get people to be scared of anyone trying to lure people away from the corrupt safety blanket that is government, particularly the American government? Again, I'm not claiming that's true or untrue, but some people believe that that was the psychological operation as a whole. Now, whether Jim Jones was used as a useful idiot or he was simply MK Ultra or whatever, who knows? But it could have been a means to an end for a psychological operation. Are most school shootings psychological operations? Again, for all the triggered youths. It doesn't mean the events didn't happen. That means they were manufactured in a particular way. And that also doesn't necessarily mean that the claimed shooter, even had knowledge of their own manipulation. If you haven't checked out the Columbine conspiracy series, check that out. It is, there's just a mountain of evidence that there was some kind of government involvement and manipulation in framing the minds of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, as well as many others. And there could have been many other events. Again, Bill Cooper predicted all of this in Behold a Pale Horse around 1990. So, yeah, I mean, a highly, highly suspect whenever you see any major event on the news. Is it all just trauma-based mind control to surrender to the government in this psyop age? Obviously, 9/11, one of the biggest ones. But, I mean, there's tons of other ones that could have been psychological operations. It's really tough because now, with just the rise of media in general, because 100 years ago, I mean, without television and social media and the 24-hour news cycle, the level that you could psyop people was obviously different. Now, at the same time, people did have more blind faith in government. So, you have that on one hand. But then we also don't know what really happened with the world wars after all the, regarding the mud flood. Were the world wars like some kind of cover to just bomb all of these cities, which would make it easier to cover up whatever, free electricity, certain other hidden technologies of the past? I mean, again, all of this would be speculatory. But psyops clearly have evolved in the way they're being perpetrated today. I mean, some people believe that even frequencies from cell phones, 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, are all manipulatory frequencies, all part of under the umbrella of the psyop. So if we're living in some kind of psyop age where it's just multiple levels of psyop, some served as distractions, bread and circus, sports on TV, and people have been requesting for me to cover the so-called sports conspiracy with magnets and rims and balls and the manipulation of sports games. I do not believe that games are manipulated on the amateur levels, just because having played certain sports, on a non-professionally, it just seems like nobody would care. So obviously in the bigger and just the means to do it and just the amount of random, where's the line of delineation? So like a pickup game at the local park, obviously that's not a manipulated sports game with a bunch of nobodies. Now what about a semi-pro league? What about that? What about college sports, semi-pro, and then pro? And then Olympics. How much of the Olympics is manipulated? And then which sports? Because certain sports seem like they'd be difficult to manipulate. Like, unless you're talking about flat out fixing in terms of paying off judges or athletes. But in terms of like NBA, NFL, I mean, there are some sketchy plays out there. There is some weird, bizarre numerology stuff going on. I will be going over that in a deep dive podcast. But in terms of layers of a psyop, are these just all different layers? Just the endless amount of brain-rotting TV shows out there. I mean, in the past, there was at least some kind of quality to the art. I mean, I kind of go over this in the podcast, The Decline of Everything, on the Bruce McGuire channel. So check that out. Make sure you subscribe over there if you're not already subscribed there. I don't put everything on MindShock. I do put certain podcasts over on the Bruce McGuire channel exclusively. Hope you guys enjoyed another edition of the MindShock podcast. If you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Help support the channel and help us get more mind-shocking episodes out, examining a slew of topics from coincidence theorist psychology, conspiracy theorist psychology, the paranormal, and true crime cases. Hit that like button, share this podcast across social media platform. Let's bring an age of logic and reason back to the world so that we can build a better world where the corrupt profiteers do not just hoodwink everyone en masse with no recourse. You can find us Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon to get priority case topic logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast, depending on your tier. And if you want to debate me, we can do that also. Just make sure you are well-versed in logical fallacies, because they will be called out in the interest of valid discussion and valid conversation. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire, signing off. Catch you guys next time.